Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Brave New Worlds. Brave New Worlds is a self-published title. It's for 2 to 6 players, ages 14 and up, and games range anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes. Brave New Worlds is all about discovery. You'll be manning one of our top space agencies trying to explore our galaxy. You'll be employing things like telescopes, spacecraft, satellites, and rovers to explore worlds, moons, and asteroids, trying to gain the most discovery points and be the ultimate explorer. So this game is all about discovery. You're trying to be the first space agency to reach 100 discovery points. All right, let's take a quick look at setup. The board is currently set up for a 2 to 4 player game. Now, the map expands greatly when you get into that 5 and 6 player count. And so this galaxy map is made up of these circular tiles. The circular tiles represent, on the inner ring, you have the rocky planets, and then you have the asteroid belt around that, and then you have the gas giants, and finally on the outer ring you have the ice giants. So it's definitely a somewhat representation of our galaxy. Each player will receive a space agency from a different country, and all these space agencies are color-coded, so your miniatures and telescope tokens will match. Your miniatures are comprised of satellites, rovers, and spacecrafts. And then on your player board, each of those spacecrafts will show what it costs in fuel to roam around the galaxy, as well as land and launch. Also, the player board gives you the handy reference of order of play as you move through the game. And finally, you have your fuel tokens, your payload tokens, and the scoreboard. Now you're ready to begin. So to start the game, each player is going to receive 4 fuel tokens, and the start player is going to get the launch button. Now the game is broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is flipping or removing telescope tokens. Secondly, you'll be collecting income. And thirdly, you'll perform actions. Now it's important to note that those first 2 phases, the flipping of the telescopes or removing them, and income collection, is all going to happen simultaneously. And then you'll move to the action phase, which will be done in turn. So for this first phase, any telescope tokens that are out on the board already from a previous action phase will then be flipped. If they're on the white side, you're going to flip them to the black side. And if they're on the black side, you're going to remove them from the board and the tile underneath it will be revealed. However, if there are multiple telescope tokens on a particular tile, that tile does not get flipped until all the telescopes have been removed. The income phase is all about receiving more resources, and the resources are telescopes, fuel, and payload. Now, you're going to get 6 tokens, and 2 of which are going to always be telescope. However, the other 4 can be any mixture of payload and fuel and telescope. So you have to choose wisely here as you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in your next move and with your actions. But really, the telescope is all about searching the galaxy for the particular planets or moons or asteroids that you're trying to find. And then fuel, obviously, is to get your ships into space as well as land and move through the galaxy. And then your payload, you have to have a payload token with you when you go out to a particular planet or wherever you're going, because without payload, you don't have scientific instruments to explore and get more data on this world. So on the action phase, you can do any number of things, and you don't have to do all of these, and they're not in any particular order. So you're going to be placing telescope tokens, and when you place one on a tile that's face down, then you can peek at it at any time. Anytime you have a tile that you have a telescope token on, you can look at it any time during your turn. And then you're going to be deploying spacecraft or satellites or rovers to different areas throughout the galaxy. And again, you've got to make sure you calculate your fuel costs for launching, landing, and traveling through the galaxy. And if you travel over multiple turns to get to a world or wherever you're going, you have to make sure that your ship has enough fuel to make the whole journey over multiple turns, because you cannot refuel once you leave the Earth. So once you reach your destination, and assuming you've provided enough fuel to get there and land and then deploy, which is one of your payload tokens, we have to have at least one to deploy. So let's go to Mars. We're going to be the first one there. We're going to put a rover on this planet with 1 payload token. So I'm the first one there. I get the exploration bonus of 5. With my rover, it's going to give me an additional 3 points. Now at the end of every one of my turns, as long as my rover is there, I'm going to be getting 3 points for being on Mars. Now, if someone comes along with another rover, but they've got multiple payload tokens. They have to have at least 2 to kick me off, but if they have 2 or more payload tokens, they can kick my rover off. Now there's also a hierarchy. If there's a satellite here and I come with a rover, I kick the satellite out. If I show up with a spacecraft, a manned spacecraft, and the rover's there, then I kick the rover off. So there's some hierarchy going on for sure. And there's reasons to kick people off, because if you just let them sit on these worlds or moons, then they're just going to continue to gather those points for a rover or a manned mission or whatever it is they're doing. So there's some take that. I mean, you got to be mindful about what people are getting every turn, because those points can ramp up really quickly. So those are the basics of what you're going to be doing on your turn. Now there's a couple of things of note here. There are hazards. Our galaxy is hazardous after all. If you happen to be on a hazardous tile, then you're going to lose tokens. You get to choose payload or fuel, but that could really wreck your whole mission idea. And remember, when you're in space, you cannot refuel. It could basically wipe you out completely for that mission. Now, if you move through the galaxy on multiple turns, you have enough fuel to do that, move way out to the outer edge or something, and you're moving across tiles that are face down, another player can examine that tile using a telescope, and if it happens to be a hazard, they could reveal it, causing your mission to go off the rails. And that's something to be very mindful of. Now, there's also gravity assist. So you're using fuel to move through this galaxy. But if you go through a planet or go past a planet, then you can use its gravity to elevate you or push you along, and so you can spend less fuel and get further. So there's other things to keep in mind as you're calculating fuel that you'll need for that particular mission. And so the game comes to an end when one space agency has received 100 or more discovery points. Now, again, it's super important to keep in mind that these different planets have very different point values, especially if you're like out at Pluto or something. Pluto's going to give you a ton of points on every turn. So letting a player camp on a world like that is really not advantageous. You have to take steps in order for that to not happen. And so the player with the most points is going to be the ultimate space agency. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview. Everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, there's a lot of neat things going on in this game. I really like the fact that it's based on actual planets and asteroids and moons in our galaxy. And they even have this awesome book that talks about each of the worlds and all the different things about them. It's really, really interesting. I like that they put the real science into this game. So, but ultimately, folks, if this looks like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.